Crime, my good friend, Mr. David Cummings, who's going to start out with the first question of our speakers today.
Hey, Chris, thanks a lot. And Rob, really appreciate you stepping in. Tony, really appreciate you coming aboard. We've been trying to get this done for a while. And Rob and I, for those students, should know he's more of a mentor for me. When I was coming up at the Daily News, Rob was established, at the time, one of the few, maybe 5 African-American columnists in the country when he was at the Detroit Free Press. And what Rob did, and what I want him to talk about, is he went from print to television to radio and TV, and now he's teaching. And I want him to kind of, Rob, you still there?
Yeah. Just the lights went off. I'm sorry.
So what I'd like for Rob to really give to the students is an understanding of the skill set that you had to have, and really the way you went from print to television, and if you think that is something possible today.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate.
You're muted, Rob.
Oh, did I use the mute button already on Sports?
I know already. What? Come on, Tony. You got me now.
Muter, man.
All right. Like the deflator, you're the muter, right? Okay. Dave, yeah, thanks for having me, and I appreciate jumping in. But yeah, you know, it's funny, when I was a reporter, a newspaper reporter, and I started to branch out in the local TV and do some radio, I was criticized by a lot of people, like, pay attention to your column, you shouldn't be doing it. But you have to be able to, be able to do as many things. The more things you can do, the more viable you're going to be, the more valuable you're going to be, and you want to be versatile. And so writing a column was great. And then also going on television and being able to have that opinion and put it out there. People were like, okay, this guy has something to say, and he's willing to say it on television in front of everybody. And then I started doing it on radio. And so that's why I was able to do this for 36 years. And you don't want to be a dinosaur. You got to be able to move along as things move along. I'm heavy on social media now. You know, I'm 58 years old. I could be like, I didn't do this when I was 25. I'm not doing it now. No, that's not the way you do it. So Dave, it's very, very important to grow as the business grows and make yourself as valuable. So when somebody hires people nowadays, they want to know you can do more than one thing and they can count on you.
Thank you. Yeah. To follow up with that, Chris, I think you had a similar question for Tony. And if you want to shoot that to him, I'll come back with Rob after Tony responds.
I mean, the career path question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, Tony, describe it, because you're a very, knowing you being a friend of mine, you have a very compelling story. Please describe to students your career path and journey, like your childhood, college, training, previous employment, and how you got to where you are today.
First, I want to say hello and thanks for having me, guys. Much love to all the students. I live on your campus. That's your soccer field right behind me, covered in snow right now. So this is something I hope to extend to you guys now in this class and in the future, all right? St. Francis is my neighborhood. I grew up in Staten Island, and I was raised in Jersey, and I had a dream, you know? I think Rob's talking about being a journalist and a frontline guy, as a beat reporter and a columnist. My dream was to be a television host. I wanted to be an anchor. I wanted to be this is since I was 5 years old. I'm an old soul. I'm reading the paper when I was a young man, Rob and Newsday and everybody, Mike Lupica and the Daily News. And of course, growing, I wanted to talk about sports. And I went to Fordham University in the Bronx and did radio there. I know we have some people and a great radio program here. That was my entry into the business. And I learned how to talk on radio, and I learned how to edit radio and produce radio. But I wanted to be on air on television. But those jobs are hard to come by. And Chris knows this a little about me. I had a really bad Jersey accent, or Staten Island, Brooklyn. My mom's from Brooklyn accent growing up. I had to work with a voice coach when ESPN hired me. And I was behind the scenes. I knew I wanted to be on air, but I knew I wasn't going to get a job in Iowa doing minor league baseball with the way I sounded. And I knew I wanted to stay in New York. That was important to me too. But I want to make the dream happen. I had to learn, like Rob said, how to do different things. And one of those things was to do behind the scenes work, how to create a show, produce a show. That show was Part of the Interruption. A week before Part of the Interruption launches for ESPN in 2001, when you guys were just coming into this world, I was asked to be a sidekick for 10 seconds of airtime a day. Oh, we like your style, Reali. We like your energy. It was more energy than it was style. I could say that. And I was made a sidekick where I would be the guy who was correcting Kornheiser and Wilbon. This is a character called Stat Boy, which I did for about 15 years, probably up until when you were maybe just starting high school. And in that time, I also got a spinoff to that show called Around the Horn, the show I host every day, where I do something different than Rob. My job is to host and to curate voices and talent and then moderate them through a discussion. That's what I do every day off the air. That's what I do every day with my friends in the bar room or in the Sunday dinners. And that was something I learned about TV, was trying to have the most natural discussion I could have. So I'm entering through a different way than Rob is. And I'm happy to field any questions on how to have that most, we use buzzwords and they're really silly, but organic conversations on TV. But I just want you to know, you got to start with the dream. From there, you got to prove you can do different things. And from there, you have to bring your unique perspective. And for me, it was being maybe my most natural self, maybe not the voice you see on all TV shows, but a different type of person. That's kind of how I went about it.
Hey, Dave, I want to jump in and just share one quick story, because Tony's story about being 5 years old and, wanting to do this.
Yeah.
And it is about having a passion for something. It's a very competitive business. And if you're lukewarm on this, you won't make it.
Yeah.
Like you gotta really want this. And so I was in high school in 1980. I was 16 years old, and the school paper took a long time to come out with production, typesetting it, sending it to the printer, and it coming back. It's not like today. So I was 16. I went to my principal and I said, high school principal, and I said, I want to start an all sports newspaper that came out on time. Tony and Dave, this is before the National. This is 10 years before the National.
I had the idea.
Yes. And I went to him, and the principal told me, no, he said, can you imagine? This is an educator, right? Yeah. He said to me, no, the kids are only going to throw it on the ground as trash. This is what he told me.
Yeah.
And B, we don't have money for it. So I said to him, well, if I raise the money myself, can we do the paper? He said, sure, if you want to pay for the printing cost. I went home to my typewriter, sat at my kitchen table, and I wrote 3 letters, all to the publishers of New York papers: the New York Times, the Daily News, and the New York Post. The Daily News was my favorite paper. They didn't write me back. The New York Times wrote me a letter back saying it was against their company policy to help other people start newspapers. I'm like, I'm 16. How in the world did they write a letter to a 16-year-old? And you ready? The 3rd letter was to the New York Post. The publisher of the New York Post at that time was Rupert Murdoch. He was not, Fox wasn't born. He was just a newspaper publisher. And guess what? When I opened that letter up, there was a check for $50 from Rupert Murdoch's office to start my high school newspaper.
Wow.
And and that's a true story. And obviously I'm out in LA, and I wound up working out here for Rupert Murdoch. I got to tell him that story. But the point I want to share this with students: no one's going to come to your door, knock on your door, and say, hey, here's your dream job. Yeah. You got to make these things happen. I was a naive 16-year-old kid with a typewriter asking for money.
Yeah.
And I got a check to start my paper, my dream. And I'm telling you, that's the kind of initiative you got to think about.
So there's initiative, but also, as Rob said, your dream job, you may not even know what it is. Your dream job may not be invented yet. I mean, I started in this industry before podcasting, and I was doing radio, and podcasting wasn't even available. I've seen the advent of social media, the things that Rob had to do, and I did similar things, so not to that extent, but I've heard this story similar to it with some of the great reporters I work with every day on Around the Horn. And at your fingertips now, you can have your own YouTube page within seconds and be putting out and just go to the soccer field with your team now and do a stand-up report. You can do that. That's at your fingertips now, and that's free. All you need is your cell phone to do that. There's amazing access. But what somebody in our position is looking for, as we're looking for the next generation, you got to tell your story. You have to have your own point of view. That's what you're bringing to the table. Now you have to craft that. You don't come out fully hatched, of course. I mean, I can go back. I was on TV at 23 being sidekicked. And people say, you're just the same as you were. I'm not the same as I was now. I put in the work. I mean, whether we now believe 10,000 hours makes you an expert at something or not, everybody has a different view of that. I've done 4,800 episodes of Around the Horn. I did 5,000 of PTI. You know, I can't look back at those first episodes now. I can't even watch them. I know my hosting has changed. I thought of myself, I needed to be a sports addict and a sports, crazed host my first 5-10 years. Now I know how to listen. I didn't know how to listen as a host. Hosting, what I do is different than Rob. But once again, he's writing the story. He's on the beat. He's coming up with the point of view. I need to be a listener. I need to be listening to what Rob is saying. And then I found out how to tell the story I want to tell every day. Because I'll say this broadly, and we can get into this in a second. I know we have some questions. I don't want to filibuster here. But for me, we work in entertainment in a lot of ways. Rob does it in journalism, and I do it from a different entry point. But the oldest form of entertainment is storytelling, right? I mean, that's in the cave. We're drawing pictures on a cave, millions of years, whatever, storytelling. I found out for me as I progressed as a host, as I evolved as a host, as a storyteller, what do I want to do? I need to make relatable, that's one, and unpredictable moments. That's two. Two things I try to do every day. Rob might approach it differently while writing a column.
I agree with that. Tony, I agree with that. I mean, I always say,
reach an audience.
Right. It is entertainment. It is entertainment. So you just can't state the facts or give people numbers with nothing to it. So I totally agree. There is a science to it. I always say you want to be fun and informative, because when you're fun, somebody's watching it, they're enjoying it, but you also have to give them information. People want to leave the show feeling like I learned something.
They have to learn something or get something they didn't already have, whether it's learned or just some, like Around the Horn has this built in with a scoring system. How does the scoring system work on Around the Horn? I don't know. And I host the show. Every day I'm scoring it different. I'm trying to pull something out of the experts on my show, whether it's analytical or whether it's the exact opposite, the style and information. How is Rob doing his radio show or writing his column? Some days he's got to write from the heart. Some days he's got to write from the mind. Some days he's going to have to write a first person. Sometimes it has to be a third person story. That has to be different every day, but it's got to reach the audience in a way that grabs them, right? So as we, as young students in this game, we got to always check in with ourselves. There's a word I use a lot now, and maybe it's approaching a buzzword, but it's intention, right? Intention. What are we doing here? What am I trying to do? Why am I writing this piece? Why am I giving this report? Well, if it's a report that I'm on the beat, I got to give you the information of the game like you didn't see it. But what am I doing if I'm writing an opinion piece? I got to put you in that story and make you feel something.
Hey, Rob, I have a quick question for you, because I can see you guys can take this on your own.
Sorry.
What are you telling your students? Rob is a professor at USC. What are you teaching them as they go out that you could share with the students? You're not getting paid for sharing it with the students.
No, I get that, right.
So you can still give us, what it is that what do you share with them?
Well, Tony hit a great point on this, and it's about finding your voice and being able to be unique, like watching something or watching a game and digging in a little deeper, and not just being Joe Obvious, what they call Captain Obvious, right? Where I'll give you the perfect example. When Tom Brady won his 5th Super Bowl, right? And they beat Seattle, right, with the interception in the end zone or whatever. And, you know, everybody thought I would come in and crumble because I've been a Brady critic, right? He's got 5. The lights are about to go on. Hold on.
We gotta get that electricity bill.
Yeah. Hey, and USC, if nobody's moving around in the room, the lights go out. But anyway, so I had to come into that day and face it. Brady had won 5 Super Bowls at that time, and he passed Joe Montana. So everybody's saying Brady's the GOAT. So I came in prepared, and I said, no, Tom Brady's the LOAT. He's the luckiest of all time. And I laid out the case of all of the lucky things that happened, the tuck rule and Carolina kicking the ball out of bounds and you know, Atlanta, you know, all these games that were choked down. And so I came in and it became a thing because Skip and Shannon were doing the show. They laughed, you know, because nobody expected me to have that kind of take. And that's what I'm saying. Find your lane. What is it that you do? So one of my things is I'm always giving people nicknames like that. Tom Brady's the LOAT. LeBron James is the FOFOT, the finals failure of all time. He's lost more championships than any other finals MVP.
Right.
Kevin Durant is the Masot, the most sensitive of all time. So I have a name for you, and you want to find your lane.
Leader of all time. I mean, what is this, man?
Chris Broussard calls me the Habot, the hatingest brother of all time. So I'm going to just take that.
Okay. I'm going to ask a quick question to both of you gentlemen, and this is, I'm going to put my career counselor's hat on.
Yeah.
Tell us about convey upon the students the importance of internships in this particular field, either from your experience or even supervising interns. And generally, was there a particular internship that was actually influential, or even your case, Tony, working at campus radio station, that was particularly influential in your career path?
Rob, you can start off because I know you might have to run.
Yeah, you know what? I interned at a few places when I went to Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven, got my master's degree from Columbia, and started my PhD at NYU. But it was at Southern Connecticut that I was able to work. And back then, I worked for the New Haven Register, taking high school phone calls and writing little roundups. I worked at WELI Radio, which was a local station there, doing all kinds of stuff. So I got a hand on radio. So this goes back to college that I did newspaper, radio, and then I worked for WTNH, interned as a sports assistant, production assistant in the sports department. Channel 8 was an ABC station. And I got to write some highlights and copy. And I got the feel for all 3 mediums back then as a 20-year-old. Can you imagine working in all 3 newsrooms and getting a feel for it? And I could always remember the Ronnie Duncan was the weekend sportscaster who I worked with when I interned. And he let me write the copy for some highlights. And I'll never forget it. So I wrote this copy. A guy had a 75-yard touchdown run. And so I wrote in the copy, Joe Smith takes the handoff and AB, see you later, a 75-yard touchdown run. Ronnie loved it. And, that gave me the ultimate confidence about writing for television.
Yeah, I had that same job, too. I wrote for Channel 11, Sal Marciano, and the late Sean Kimberling, who we lost too early.
Yes.
So that was not an internship. That was actually a job. I mean, I want to say this off the bat. Your major, nobody ever walks around. I never asked the major of any of the people. I don't know what Monica McNutt's major was at Georgetown. I know she makes great TV and is a basketball analyst, and she's one of the great. Mina Kimes, I think, was in finance. Woody Page, I know, did journalism many years ago at Tennessee, but I don't think that was what it was called back then. And as far as internships, yes, I mean, I had an internship for about a day with ABC Radio in New York. And somebody didn't show up for work the next weekend, and then I was just getting paid for them. We pay our interns at Around the Horn and PTI and Debatable, the shows that we work on now. That they're really important. That they show you what's possible. They show you the different. I mean, I'll just broadly say it right now. I mean, you see the people on TV, and of course we have crew as well. If you have a technical interest, stage managing, technical camera operation, and things of that nature. But my back row and front row, and the back row and front row of a control room. Front row is where the directors and the technical people hang out. That's my director, my TD, my technical director, and the audio people. Back row is the producers. I have 4 producers on Around the Horn, basically. 1 does research, 1 does video, 2 do content. And then, I mean, I'm a producer as well. That's a skeletal staff, but everybody is working together to put the show together. I think you need to, experience all those things, even if you want to be on air. I have a sense that most people kind of want to at least explore that, but an internship can afford you that, but so can doing your own work and finding a mentor in the business. And those mentors can exist just I've mentored people just from social media hits that they just hit me with. And I know Rob has probably put himself out there millions of times too. I don't want to get lost, and you got to have an internship. You got to have an agent. Some people say in the business. I mean, I don't even have an agent now. I represent myself. I did for some time. Those things are like, they are things you can do to get in the business. But then again, there's no one way to get in. There's no one look anymore. It's a wonderful thing. Again, I have to drill down on being your authentic self, being your natural self, and having your own point of view. But there are times to use that, and there are times not to use that. I think Professor Miguel talked about ungraciously walking through the door. You never want to do things ungraciously. I mean, I think you have to be aware of yourself. But the reality is, you just make that door. You become your lead blocker. You utilize people who are there for you. I'm going to put myself out here for you right now. There are people who can, I think it's so important to know the next generations out there. But whether you have the internship or not, if you feel like it's in you, go there.
Rob, before you jump, I'm going to make sure every student has your email address.
Yes.
Because tell them why I will do that, Rob.
Well, I've been a mentor to a lot of. Is that what you're going to, Dave?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I real quick, my class is now assembling here at USC, so they're coming in the room. But Dave knows I've been a mentor to a number of people in our business, and I hate to drop names, but I'll do it because everybody knows him. But Stephen A. Smith was one of my first mentees, and I got to know Steve when he was a sports writer in North Carolina. And actually, he was writing sports for free on the weekends. And during the week, he was a movie timetables clerk that would put in the movie timetables and write sports for free. And Steve called me up one day and was going to quit the business and go work for Wachovia Bank. This is a true story. And I told Steve, I was reading his clips, Tony, and I was, editing them and sending them back to him like as he went on. And I could see he had promise and talent. And I told him that he couldn't. This is before cell phones. We're on house phones talking. And I said to Steve that day, and I'll never forget it, I said, I want to hear you rip that Wachovia application up over the phone, because you can't allow one, person to determine your future. And he did it. He stuck with it. And the rest is history. So believe in yourself, put in the work, find people who can help mentor you and who have been down that road. And it is possible. I'm a kid from Jamaica, Queens. Nobody in my family was ever in journalism. They didn't have a radio show. They didn't write a column. They weren't on TV. So is it possible? It is possible.
Hey, Rob, Monique Pryor, you on? I know you want to say thank you before Rob jumped off. I don't know if you'll be able to be unmuted or not, but if not, I will say on Monique's behalf that, Rob, you're there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, Monique.
Hi, Rob and Tony. I'm Chief Engagement and External Affairs Officer at the college. I really want to thank Chris and Dave for getting you here today. We appreciate you so much for taking the time. I was trying to get in before the president dropped off, but first of all, Tony, the fact that we're in your backyard and you've already committed to coming to St. Francis, we're going to hold you to that. Rob, meeting with our president and helping us strategize on how we can continue to elevate our students and provide opportunities for them. You know, we'll have our chair, Dr. Palmer, come meet with you as well in communications. I just wanted to ask, we have a number of students here on journalism, accounting majors. What other people do you interact with in communications and radio? What other fields are there that students may not know about? Everyone can't be a Tony and Rob, but if you don't have a Rob there, beneath your wings helping you like Stephen A. Smith, what other opportunities has someone done or have you done at radio or television?
Hey, Tony, you got to take the ball
I
there.
got it, Rob.
My class is ready to go, and they're ready for hot takes on the Super Bowl.
Okay.
So we're ready to go, my man. Thank you,
I don't care what
everybody.
anybody says, Rob. You're the low. You're lucky.
Thank you so much, Rob, for stepping in. We appreciate that.
Yes, thank you, guys. Dave, everybody, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay.
Monique, that's a good question because, and I'll start even from an entry level position, how students might see it, working for a network like ESPN, or I work at Pier 17, right across the water, and that's I'll talk to you about some of the technical side of it. But entry level for ESPN, you can make a decision. Do you like the technology of TV or any of the new media, which would mean also working, in tech of radio. Tech podcast, which is very similar, tech of social media. If you want to be a social media manager, which is storytelling in a different way, somebody's running the Instagram accounts and somebody's making the memes and doing all those things. That is a very respected, both entry and above level position now in the industry, which is what I'm talking about with your next job. Your dream job may not exist in 5 years. I mean, running the social media accounts is much like running the PR of a network. You're one of the front-facing people of the network, even though it's not your face out there. It's your voice and through the network. But information, of course, is how a journalism side of the industry is always going to lean forward first. So the research department is a huge part of ESPN, and that's how I got my start. Honestly, I was writing and researching trivia questions for a game show in 2001. That was my first job, along with working for Channel 11 in New York out of Fordham. I wrote and researched the questions, but this is how you have the entire side of ESPN that does information. You have the entire side of ESPN that does visual and audio, which includes taking in the video, watching games for a living, and then cutting those 20-second pieces of video you see from the football game last night. This is Matthew Stafford. Look how he looks away from the receiver he's throwing to at the last second throws to him. And you're cutting the video to do that. And then you're getting the video sent to the producers and the on-air people who are now going to talk about it. That's another entry point. So now we can expand our mind to thinking, do you want to work in information? Do you want to work in the visual or audio medium? Do you want to work in the social media side? Do you want to work on the on-air side or in the production side, which includes coming up with story ideas? So after I did research, I became a person that came up with story ideas. I wanted to be a producer. And that's what are the 10 major sports issues of the day? For Pardon the Interruption, the show I worked on initially. And as I came up with that, they decided to make me a sidekick, which is how I entered into the business. And then I became a spin-off on Around the Horn. Real quickly, I alluded to this, but this is a story I want to tell because this is now the 18-year anniversary is this day. My first show hosting Around the Horn was the day after the Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Panthers. It was the day after the Super Bowl, Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake's halftime show. I got a call the Sunday night before the show. There was a contract squabble. You're the only person who could fill in tomorrow on Around the Horn.
Wow.
Can you host the show? Can you just sit in the show? I know Rob talked about having, passion for the business and writing your newspaper when you're 14 years old. I did all those things. But I happened to get a dream job on a call the night before because every journalist was in either Bristol, Connecticut or Miami, because that's where that Super Bowl was being hosted. And I was the only one in Washington, D.C. where the show was being hosted that day. I filled in that day, Monique. I sweated through my clothes. I was 25, but I only had one tie. I only had one suit. It looked like a zoot suit. That's how big it was on me. Now I wear a nice Italian. I don't even wear a suit anymore, but I wear a nice form-fitted. It was huge. I looked like a baby. I sounded not like now. This is before I had the voice coach. who told me to say Irish wristwatch 5 times fast. Monique, say Irish wristwatch 5 times fast.
Irish wristwatch. And I was a journalism major. I should know.
I know. But this. I mean, so someone said with that Jersey accent, that Staten Island accent, you had to open your mouth differently. This was a voice coach for ESPN. I took that criticism. Now I think the industry is a little bit different, and we want everybody to be their unique selves. But even then, and I wasn't cookie cutter in any way. I worked for Good Morning America for 4 years. I can say, look me in the eye, I didn't hit it out of the park. It's one of the missteps in my career. Whether I was well produced or not doesn't matter. I didn't nail it because even then I wasn't what they wanted, and I couldn't become that. I'm my own self. But it was those failures. You learn from those failures too. It made me much more human, a host of Around the Horn. It made me realize my entry point has to be being my authentic self, which is what I pass along to everybody. And this is whether you want to be on air, whether you want to be a producer in this business, whether you move and do accounting, broadly, I say this to all students, how do I think about being a sportscaster now? I think of it being a person. And how do I make TV every day? It's the Maya Angelou quote, And this is in an industry where we talk and we do things. People are going to forget what you say. People may forget what you do. People will not forget how you make them feel. I take this to my heart every day, but it has led to an evolution in how I host the show. And it has made me a much more authentic me when I'm on TV. And I think that resonates better, at least for myself as an audience. I don't feel like I was that when I was doing Good Morning America. I feel like I'm that now when I host even the most sporty of sports shows. But it makes a difference to me. That's the storytelling, trying to get people to feel along with me.
Love it. Thank you so much. The Gift of Failure, a great book. But thank you so much, Tony. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
I want to take questions, Chris. I like to talk, but please give me questions more so than me.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Mr. Cummings, my dear friend, my understanding is Dean Tang just told me there are a lot of student questions. Do you think we can probably maybe even go straight to the student questions? And if so, I'm going to have my good friend Amy Drakesmith, who's our Director of Employee Relations, ask those questions. Is that cool, Dave? Well, at least we can actually start with those questions because I think he got tied away by my website. So Amy, go ahead.
I'll say it's cool. I'm sorry if it's not.
Okay.
Good afternoon. So thank you so much, Tony, for taking the time, sharing your experiences. We have quite a few questions in the chat. Lots of questions about a variety of different topics. So I'll steer towards our career spotlight focus for today. So our first question, what are your key ingredients for success in this industry?
Yes. I think I was giving a little window into that.
Yeah.
But of course, I was and am an energetic person. So for me, I'm a positive person. I come out very energetic and positive, and I think that worked for producers when they were spotlighting me as a sidekick initially. But of course, you got to do the work and be knowledgeable in the situation. But the biggest recipe for my success every day right now is listening. It's hearing and listening, because I know how I feel about certain things. And I can go on TV and talk about those certain things, but the job of host is to extract it in some way out of other people, and I have to be listening to do that. And I listen in a lot of different ways. I listen with an open heart, like I just said. I was talking about how important feeling is, but for me, I mean, you can't fake smart. The people I work with now, I'm not talking about myself, but the people I work with, you can't fake smart, but you can't fake in some way that they're actually listening in the moment to the conversation we're having.
Absolutely. Thank you. And our next question comes from actually one of our journalism faculty members. With a wide range of interests between our faculty and our students in journalism, if you weren't in sports, do you think you would still be in journalism? And if so, what kind of area would that be?
Oh, I do love this industry. I think it's one of the greatest in the world. I know it has things that need to get better. and I'm happy to work in a place where I feel I can see that growth right before our eyes. I took over the show. We may have had 6 panelists on the show. Man, maybe I'm underselling it. We maybe have had 8 panelists on the show. And we were solely dealing with sports reporters, and we were solely dealing with, I'll say it, it was old white guys on TV, and we have gotten to a place where we have expanded that. Those are some of the things that are very, very important to me. I love looking for new talents, and I would be on that side of the field, trying to cultivate and bring the new voices onto the show. I feel like I can do that while simultaneously hosting the show now, but introducing some of the Mina Kimes and Monica McNutt I alluded to before, Justin Tinsley, some of the new voices, Pablo Torre, onto the show has been very, very fulfilling for me as a person who loves this business. That's one of the things I like. I would be involved in that, cultivating new talent. Absolutely.
And you inadvertently set yourself up for the next question.
Okay,
so
good.
You're that good at your job. How do you see the industry opening up in the future? And what are your hopes and dreams for the next 10, 20 years?
I believe in this industry. I believe in journalism. I think there are many things I will include myself in this, but again, I'm a TV host, and journalists are part of the industry. TV hosts are part of the industry. I think we have to continue to drill down on accuracy and not allow for any type of misinformation. We have to be better at that. We have to continue to drill down. Our strength is in our variety, in our diversity. Our strength is in our voices. Our audiences are everybody. So how can't the people we put out there be everybody too? So I think that is for me singular, but we have to lead with accuracy. We have to lead with honesty. We have to lead with authenticity. We have to fearlessly look for the story everywhere, because the story can be everywhere. We have to have everybody tell the story, because the story is everybody. Does that may sound like I'm trying to be too broad. That may sound like I'm trying to be too vague. The reality is we have told stories for the entirety of the industry, but have we told the full story? Have we always told? This is true in academia as well. It mirrors that. Our task and our charge is the same, to relentlessly look at ourselves to see, are we telling the full story, or are we, and I don't mean this to be pejorative, but are we not seeing the full story? How can we continue to see the full story?
And you're talking about strength and authenticity and being genuine. And I think another word in there is courage too.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely.
So, thinking about courage, how important has that been? And can you talk about the importance of courage, both in taking risks to begin with, but then also being on air, taking stances that might be controversial? I'm
going to speak firstly from a personal point of view, and then I'm going to speak from the people I work with, because I see, of course, courage in people I work with. But even from a personal mental health space, it's very important to me. I live very publicly, and I've grown publicly, and I show my life a lot. You don't have to do that. Not everyone in this industry needs to do that. I know to be myself on TV, I had to put myself out there, but I also knew I can't view myself as other people view me. And that is something that is inherent. It's in this industry. You're putting yourself out there, but you give a lot of yourself away. And I'm being honest with you, and you need to be true with yourself, how much you want to put yourself out there in all industries now, even in social media. As a person who doesn't work in this industry, you're putting yourself out there. I'll speak it almost in a grammatical point of way. When you put yourself out there, you can view yourself as the subject of you can view yourself, you can allow other people to view you. You need to be the subject of your own sentence, is what I'm trying to say. That takes courage to put yourself out there. But I work with many of the prominent women I work with in this industry. The courage it takes to be in this industry. Many of the voices in this industry, it takes some people are still the lone trailblazers. I work with Mina Kimes. I'm thinking of her now because she just finished a football season. She is singular in that she is a female football analyst that didn't play the game. She's cutting down the film of games. She's not just a host. We have seen men and women be hosts. We have seen all different types of people do that sort of thing, but she is an analyst in the game. That's trailblazing. We are still in a stage where we're trailblazing in this industry. That's not going away. It may not even go away in 20 years from now too. So the breaking of barriers still exists, and that takes courage as well. I hope I wasn't too long-winded there, and I'm not sure I
and Tony, I might want to add, Mina made Jeff Garcia look like a fool.
Well, I mean, I understand that's what it is. I mean, to put a full note on what Chris said here, a former football player of acclaim who has had a problem with her having her opinion on TV, and he did it in a way that many people thought was misogynist or sexist, and he has denied that, and we should say that. But Mina was the only one he called out. There are plenty of analysts out there that he could have called out for giving her opinion. You have to have an incredibly thick skin. You have to have the skin of a rhinoceros to in some ways to succeed in this business, but you have to have that to succeed in a lot of businesses, and a lot of businesses where you have to put yourself out there on social media. You're very accessible in all industries now. I mean, professors of university are public figures in a lot of ways too.
And on that, with the individualism and being your own advocate and putting yourself out there and that strength, what advice would you have for a student that, you know, maybe is looking towards graduation and hasn't done internships or it doesn't have ties within industry? What would be your advice for them to put themselves out there?
I don't believe there's a brick wall blocking you there. I don't. I know. I mean, a lot of people drill down on internships. A lot of people drill down on majors. I do not. If I had a ballpark in my head now, I would say 50% of the people that work for the greater shows I've worked for, PTI and Around the Horn, you know, which weren't communications majors, weren't journalism majors, didn't have internships. What they had was passion, and what they had was some vision and flexibility, I guess, in trying to establish a foundation and doing different things. Now, again, the access now is a little bit different. You could have your own YouTube page. You could have your own SoundCloud or podcast or something where you're demonstrating something that I'm willing to do the work, that an internship used to be that you will have to reach out to people in the business. You will have to draw their attention, but you can put together your own little portfolio for free now without knowing what you're doing. It may not be, you know, it may not be perfect, but it will show that you have, you know, the energy for this. I don't want to scare people away and say, wow, I didn't do anything when I was in college, or wow, my brother's not in the industry, or wow, you know, of course I don't, you know, have to bankroll my own YouTube page with commercials and things like that. I mean, I've looked at students' films before that are just shot on their iPhone while watching a game, you know, in the background, and saying, this is me talking about sports. What can I work on? That's something you can do tomorrow.
Absolutely. And thinking about the creating exposure, and you brought up podcasting and live streaming and all of these, you know, newer forms of putting yourself and your work out there.
Your own Instagram page, your own
right.
And put videos out there from your own phone. And well, I mean, you don't need to have views. You just need to be doing the reps and feeling more comfortable about yourself.
Right. I think we inadvertently lost your oh, there you're back. We got you. We got you back. Has there been a specific way in which you've generated organic exposure, either for Around the Horn or some of the other projects that you've worked on? How has that looked?
I can speak to the show, and then some people in media I've fallen for doing that sort of thing. One of the things I was kind of early in on was providing behind the scenes videos that we leak of Around the Horn, which is we call it Behind the Horn, and we post them on our Instagram, Facebook, and pages. And now ESPN does that for a lot of different shows. My window into that was, let's show viewers, you know, who we are in between the commercial breaks. You know, I think Saturday Night Live had done that for a while, and I kind of had the idea, and we did it with Pizza. They showed like 10-second nuggets of what was like going on during the commercials, and I was like, that's a great idea. Can we? It was just another avenue to show viewers, you know, who we are, who we really are. There is a basketball. He started as a blogger who's now been employed by ESPN, is now even bigger than ESPN in some ways. Worldwide Wob, Rob Lopez, I believe is his name. I believe I have his name correct. And he is somebody who just has a passion for the NBA. And he had an Instagram page or a Twitter page where he would, you know, do periscopes talking about the night's games. And his passion was just infectious, and you could not, you know, turn away from it. And it's turned into a full media career at this point. And John Boy is another. John Boy is one of the great baseball viewers now, and he's shown an avenue that's different than debating sports. He's watching the games now and shooting videos of himself watching games. That was his entire now media entity.
Almost an empire.
It's almost an empire. John Boy Media is definitely an empire, and that, once again, may he had internships, may he had you know, connections to the industry, maybe or maybe not. I don't know, but I know I'm watching him now on the regular while I'm watching the World Series, and I know now he's making money enough to run an empire. And these are entry points now that didn't exist 10 or 15 years ago. That's why I think I would feel bullish and positive if I was in a space as a student now or a graduating student and wanting to be on air or wanting to work for people who are doing those sorts of things. It's not just ESPN.
Okay, I think, Amy, time for one more question.
Sure.
And we'll wrap up.
So I think the last question that we'll pick out are, you know, you talked a lot about passion, and you have covered some of the greatest moments in sports. So what are the ways that you prepare yourself specifically to go out and produce when you know you're reporting on what's going to be a great story?
I just want to make a correction. Rob Perez is Worldwide Wob. I just want to get his name right. I apologize for that. How do I prepare for every show? Let's approach it that way. I'm on 400 episodes. Today is the day after the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is like my Super Bowl. It's a really big deal. This is going to be our highest rated show of the year. It always is. How do I prepare for this show? Well, I just watched, of course, 7 hours of television last night. Watching the Super Bowl, watching commercials. I'm taking notes during the game. I'm texting with my producers. I'm texting with the video producers and getting the exact camera angles I want for every show. I do a conference call with reporters before every show I do, about 10:30 in the morning, where I talk to them about what's going to be some of the talking points you're interested in. Here's some questions I have, and another producer will then ask them questions, and we'll try to gauge what they want to talk about. Then I kind of pattern my introduction scripts to them every day with a question, an entry point that will get them to the right talking point. I'll write my scripts before the show, but nothing really is scripted, but I want the video people to know how I want to introduce the topics. I then do my tongue twisters, Irish wristwatch, Irish wristwatch, Irish wristwatch, Irish wristwatch, Irish wristwatch. I don't do makeup anymore, and I don't even do my hair much anymore because of the pandemic, but I put on my black shirt every day, and I go on TV. I do a few stretches where we'll tape around the horn starting at 2:30 today. We tape it over an hour, which I will invite you all to come to the studio at some point, but we're still in COVID protocol. That's how I prepare for the show every day. But most of all, I live in the moment now. When I first started hosting, I tried to prepare scripted questions in my head. Now I got to listen to the panelists before they talk every day, while they talk every day, and I try to have them all. Again, it's a preparation. I have intention every day, but I'm trying to live in the moment to make a real conversation. But I'm looking for the most relatable, unpredictable moments when I'm on TV, because I believe relatability is so important for any entertainment or any industry that is trying to seek an audience. All right.
This applies for The Office. This applies for Around the Horn. This applies, whatever show, Euphoria, whatever shows you're watching. We have relatability. I'm that character. You're that character. Woody Page on Around the Horn is the crazy uncle. Tony is this guy who thinks he's so cool. He's in the middle, but he's kind of a nerd. Mina Kimes is the brilliant one. All these people are hitting on a relatability at home for a viewer to connect with. The unpredictability is that scoring system or the expertise they're going to have and how we're going to mute them on any show. But when you're working with an audience, try to reach them, be your authentic self, put yourself out there that you could feel and make other people feel, and try to be relatable with people.
Relatable and unpredictable. I love that.
Those are my 2 entry points to storytelling and working in any media industry.
I love that. Thank you so much, Tony. And I know Chris is gonna close us out in just a minute, but before we do that, I want to invite John Wagner, our Director of Athletic Communications for SFC. And I hope I got your title right as I introduced you, but I want to just invite you to say a couple words, John.
I love how he's wearing the gear today, representing.
Yes, I love that gear.
The brand is strong. Tony, you need any, you know where to find me. Well, you didn't know where to find me. Now you know where to find me. First off, just want to say it's fantastic to be on here virtually with you, Tony, and for Rob as well. Tony, I don't want to age you here, but I grew up watching you on ESPN. Huge fan. Was actually a local reporter before I took this position. So want to go ahead and throw it out there to all of the students that are on that we have a ton of opportunities in our athletic department. We're a little understaffed right now. So any sort of student help that we can get, writing, video, photography, all that kind of stuff. We have a ton of production opportunities as well.
John, if I can interrupt for a second.
Sure.
Monique asked me before, being at a college radio station, college TV, the athletic department is a great entry place to learn as well. Sports information is, I guess, maybe one of the greater ways to describe what that is. But that sports information is an entry point to the research positions and the video positions I was just talking about at ESPN. So if you are graduating or the years before that, as Mr. Wagner is saying right now, that is another place right at your fingertips.
Yeah, absolutely. And, especially on that research and, any sort of, we're always doing statistics for whether it be conference awards every week, Northeast Conference, any of that kind of stuff. I'm happy to kind of bring in all the help because this is a new egg for me, and I'm happy to kind of bring in anybody as well that's interested. I know there's some students and some student athletes that are on this call that we already work with doing live stats and some other angles. So again, I want to open that up to any opportunities. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. I think we're going to get in touch with Chris and some of the other folks here. I'm happy to have you. And obviously I'm not at any sort of level that Tony nor Rob are on, but I do have some experience in local television and kind of making my way up. If you want to talk, I'm happy to hear that as well. And Tony, I would love to meet you in person at some point. If you're in the neighborhood, we got a few basketball games left here. You know where to come find us, 180 Remsen. So we would love to have you at any point in the near future. And thanks for being a part of this.
No problem. Thank you so much, John. It's been really great today. Also, I want to give a shout out to another great sports fan, our Vice President of Enrollment Management and Mr. New York Football Giants, Rob Oliva.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm about to go to the set for Around the Horn. I'm going to tell you today's panel. Bill Plaschke from the Los Angeles Times, who covers the Los Angeles Rams. So that's a good panelist to have on the day after they win the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Kevin Blackistone, Israel Gutierrez is on today's show, and Frank Isola. So now I'm going to put it out there and everybody. And I know a guy, I can make this happen. Who do you think wins today's show? Chris, you want to nominate somebody of that?
I think Plaschke's probably going to win.
All right, so now you guys can go ahead and make a bet with Vegas. Bill Plaschke for today's show. Chris, you sit out there. Let's see if it comes to fruition.
Okay, thank you so much, Tony. You're a special friend, great man. Came to speak to you today. Thank you for Rob Parker for coming in and spelling for Chris Bouchard at the last minute. Again, want to thank my my supervisor, assistant dean, Gerald Tang, for helping put this together, and my dear friend Amy, who works with me also, for helping out on this presentation, and Brother Greg and others, and for all of your support, students, faculty, administration, president's office, everybody. Thank you for putting this together. Thank you again, Tony.
Thank you, Professor Hughes, and everybody. You know how to reach out to me. I'm on Twitter at Tony Reali, or you can reach out to me through Professor Hughes.
Oh, I'm not really a professor though.
Yeah, we'll call you a doctor then.
Faculty. Well, definitely not that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Tony.
All right,
Appreciate it
guys.
again.
Bye now. Well, I'm on a 23.5-hour break.